Are we good? Can everyone hear me? Yeah? Can I get some thumbs up nice and high? Amazing. You all are hopefully in for a good time. So welcome everyone to Don't Panic, Hitchhikers Guide to AI Governance. You may be thinking, Chris, well, no, you wouldn't necessarily be thinking Chris, because I haven't introduced myself yet, but you might be thinking, hey, person up there, you're talking about AI governance. AI governance is kind of a hot topic right now. It's kind of a big deal. How are you going to fit it all into 30 minutes? And the answer to that is, I'm not. I'm going to fit a tiny sliver of it into 30 minutes. And if you want to have a bit more of a conversation, you know where I'll be. I'm decked out in COLLIBRA merch. I'll be over on the COLLIBRA booth, 620. Come and say hello. There we go. So who am I? Who am I and why am I talking? My name is Chris Unwin. I'm a lead solution engineer at COLLIBRA. I know, fancy. I became a lead in January. Thank you. So I used to be an MIS developer. I used to work on a very modern platform, SQL Server on-prem, SSIS, SSAS, SSRS, all the SSSSSs, lots of VBA. So I've done my time. But now I'm more in the realm of data governance. I speak a lot about data governance and everything that goes into data intelligence, your standard lineage, quality, privacy. Okay, Chris, get on with it. So what is the goal? I'm a big fan of a goal. Did anyone come to my talk last year? Yeah, we've got a couple. Fantastic. Okay. If you didn't, go and check it out. It's still on YouTube. But yeah, the goal today is I'm going to try and articulate to you the pressing requirement to govern the data used for AI and the inherent risks that come with that data for AI. And we'll talk about a compliant and trusted framework, which we have a one-pager for over at the COLLIBRA booth. If you want to come and grab one and think about it, a little bit of bedtime reading, whatever it is you want to do when you get home. And hopefully that can inspire you into kind of going and having the conversations in your organizations about how you govern AI, how you govern data used for AI. A note on that. What I will not be saying is, this is exactly how you do it in COLLIBRA, it's all COLLIBRA, this is why you should buy COLLIBRA. Okay, yes, COLLIBRA does it, and the examples I have are COLLIBRA examples, naturally, because I have access to COLLIBRA. But that's not to say you can't apply these same principles however you want to manage AI, okay? So don't worry, if you're not yet a COLLIBRA customer, it doesn't matter. So, very first thing I did when I started thinking about how I was going to talk about AI data governance is I said, well, when I think of AI, what do I think at the moment? And realistically, thanks to the news, thanks to the last 6 to 12 months, what do we all think of? LLMs, right? We think of Google Bard, yeah, and ChatGPT. I used Stable Diffusion, the AI image generation one, to actually generate anime representations of Bard and ChatGPT. And I think they're pretty bang on. I love this slide. I'll share my slides with anyone if you want it, but I can't recommend it highly enough. And the thing I'm talking about is what we're putting into these LLMs is going to be much more of a hot topic moving forwards. I think it's something that we're all going to end up talking about. And actually, we all know about the benefits of AI, right? We're already aware of the benefits of AI. I don't need to stand here and tell you, well, did you know AI can help you with forecasting and customer churn modeling, right? And insurance models that predict which customers, are going to actually take out new products. And yeah, we know, okay? But it is absolutely fundamentally important. And we are seeing a ramp up of this. I'm working with insurance companies, I'm working with banks, I'm working with everyone who touches money. And we're realizing that actually we can do a whole lot more with our data and generate a bit more interest in it, a bit more money from it. The middle one is the interesting one. A lot of people think, it's coming for my job. But realistically, what we're able to provide with AI now is such a personalized experience. We're able to really customize the experience of our customers and make sure that they're getting what they need, right? I can find things with a chatbot working for a company that I would never be able to necessarily articulate, or if I was looking through help files, or if I was sat in a phone queue for half an hour, 40 minutes, for instance. And medical, of course. Of course, if you've seen some of the imaging that they've done on breast cancer patients and catching stage 0 breast cancer with AI by modelling the kind of early signs from X-rays that they've been able to feed into the AI model, there have been tremendous breakthroughs. And what we see, kind of what we perceive an AI model to be that we're feeding these things into, is kind of this semi-harmless, nice-looking little package, this nice little box. But in reality, what it actually amounts to is something a bit more than that. We end up with models feeding other models, training other models, consuming data from models. And realistically, how do you control these hundreds of thousands of models? And when I say control these models, we'll come on to that. A lot of us are always thinking about this stuff on the side. We're like, yeah, models, and we've got all this output and these dashboards and these insights, and we're able to make such incredible decisions, but we never end up really talking about this stuff over on the side. Does anyone know, I saw the hand go up, does anyone know the significance of this number? Anyone? It's the answer to life, the universe, and everything. If you've ever read or watched or listened to the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, what happens is these amazing programmers, right? They go and they build the universe's most amazingly, spectacularly advanced supercomputer. And they go to it and they say, oh, deep thought. What is the meaning? What is the answer to life, the universe, and everything? And deep thought goes, okay, I'm going to need 7.5 million years to think about that. 7.5 million years later, you've got all the descendants, right, from those original programmers, and they go up to deep thought. Deep thought goes, I've got the answer. You're not going to like it, but I've got the answer. And they go, tell us. And it goes, 42. And they go, what? 42 what's? What is 42? And deep thought says, well, you didn't really understand the question you asked. You didn't ask the right question, and actually, I'm not the right supercomputer to generate the question in the first place. I'll have to design another computer to do that. The rework on this 7.5 million year model that results in 42 is redonkulous, honestly. And yet it all started with the question. It all started with the input. And this is where I want to focus specifically today, and why I think it's important to focus and also keep track of time. So, some of you may have seen this, right, in the news, and I'm not trying to bash on anyone who's in these news articles, but you will have seen it pop up, right? Samsung employees were using ChatGPT in a number of ways. Number one, they took source code, they pasted it into ChatGPT and said, how do I fix this, right? They also took meetings and shoved them into ChatGPT and said, generate me the minutes of this meeting. And actually, a recent study found that 15% of employees actually often post company-sensitive data, confidential data, into ChatGPT. And actually, on top of that as well, another good example, many of the world's largest banks don't actually even have a transparent policy for reasonable AI usage. But I tell you what, who here is working for or with a company who is doing something with AI? Right? Some people working for a company, maybe you've built your own internal chatbot, your own internal LLM, for instance, or one for customers. Or maybe you're starting to think about how you can leverage your data for AI. Well, the important thing here is actually understanding what we're going to put in the first place, because it sure as heck shouldn't be our source code. What goes in comes out. Yeah? If it's a bad quality question, we get 42. And if we start putting lots of bad data into our models, then we're not going to get good results. The accuracy, the precision of our AI models is going to be so poor that they are not going to be fit for purpose. And I tell you what, compute, resource, the people required to build, document and manage these models as part of the MLOps pipeline, when we have to drop and rework things, it pushes things out. So I end up speaking to people who say, oh, the average amount of time it takes us to build a new model can be anywhere from about 150 to 600 days, right? And I've genuinely had those conversations. And actually now what we're starting to see is that people are starting to realize this. They're starting to say, oh, well, good golly gosh, we really need to start thinking about what we're putting in and how we govern that. And the EU have been kind of fresh off the mark with this. They weren't content. They were like, yeah, we had GDPR. That was kind of cool. We were the first ones there to really do this big kind of all-consuming regulatory requirement. And then they've gone, we're going to do AI as well. So they're bringing in that AI governance framework. You've got the UK as well, actually doing something too, which is kind of cool. But you've actually got the ICO tying some of the existing, I say UK GDPR, the carbon copy GDPR, we've got them actually taking that GDPR now and aligning it, right? Aligning the principles of GDPR like fairness, transparency, the amount of data that we're using for processing. Are we legally able to justify the data that we're putting into this model, or are we using more than we should? The ICO are already doing that, and the idea behind that is that they can enforce that. They can enforce GDPR abusing when it comes to misuse of data for AI models. Singapore, China, the United States, lots and lots of big data consumers and producers are all working on not just their own legislation, but their own kind of national AI strategy. Many of you will have a data strategy in the organization. Many of you will have an AI strategy in the organization. But we're seeing this now at a country, continental, cross-border level. And you're even getting playbooks, right? NIST, the National Institute for Standards and Technology in the US, have even published an actual framework for the reasonable management of AI risk. Very, very cool. And in fact, and does anyone in here read Dutch? Probably a couple. Fantastic, that's what we like. A good example, Rabobank actually, towards the beginning of this year, in fact, July, I've lost this year, I swear, time has been a sink for me. But they actually stopped the usage of AI internally. They said, do you know what, no, stop this. Our data's not necessarily in the right shape for use in AI. So again, go back to everything I've said so far, and excuse my voice cracking, it's been 2 days of near constant talking. If you think about everything I've said so far, what goes in comes out. If the data that goes in isn't the right set of data, or is incomplete, or is bad quality, right, or it's not justifiable to put that in, if we've taken the wrong data product and put that in, then we're not necessarily going to get something useful out, or we're going to make wrong decisions. And when you start talking about things like consumer duty and having a transparent, explainable process for arriving at insurance premiums, as an example, then you need to be able to explain that. And this is why it's so important to stop, look and listen, to stop and think about the data that you're using for AI. So how can we bring this about? What is the framework for good AI data governance? Well, it's going to involve everyone. Yeah, it's a round table. If you think you are doing AI governance just because the IT people are bought in, just because we sit around and the head of data and analytics goes, yeah, we're pretty safe, don't worry, everything's golden, right? And you're not speaking to the CISO, you're not speaking to legal and privacy and HR to understand how data might be permeating through the organization, then there is absolutely not that level of AI data governance necessarily that you expect from that organization, from your organization. So what does the framework look like? That. I know, detail-oriented, that's me. No, but let's think about so AI governance is a subset of enterprise data governance because not all of our data gets put into AI, right? We also use it for other models, we use it for analytics, we store it in warehouses, we archive it off, we might need to hold on to it for financial reasons, there's a whole bunch of reasons. But in AI governance, it starts with defining your use case. As with all things, it's very quick and easy to just go, oh my God, this AI stuff is so cool, I'm going to feed it some data and see what happens. No, there needs to be a defined use case, because with a defined use case, you can tie that back to a purpose for processing. Is it one of, for instance, if I relate it back to GDPR, is it tied to a particular purpose for customer management, for instance, in which is a justifiable, lawful basis for processing? Identify and understand your data. So actually, when you've defined the use case, defined that AI will be needed, right, to do predictive analysis of data, what then data are we going to need? Once we've done that, actually documenting the models and results, much the same way that we end up with hundreds of different models throughout our various different tech stacks, whether you're using kind of Databricks, who are awesome, whether you're using the kind of stack within, say, GCP and using Vertex AI and Feature Store and all that cool stuff, because boy howdy is it cool. Having it documented is so important. Understanding the data that feeds that model, if it is an ongoing basis that data feeds the model, because if the data changes, then the inputs to the model changes, or in some cases, some people I speak to, tables disappear thanks to data engineers, and they go, why is my model suddenly non-responsive? Why is everything go boom? So documentation and results, important, and actually verifying and monitoring them. If the accuracy and the prediction levels of the model are too low, well then there's absolutely no point still running with that model, because it costs. It costs in terms of time, it costs in terms of people, it costs in terms of cost. And this is what the businesses are looking at. They're saying, AI, you're going to solve everything. We're going to make billions of dollars, and then we're going to fly away, and I'm going to spend the rest of my life living in the Bahamas and just having the best life ever. But if it's costing us money rather than making us money, then why should we continue doing it, right? And at the heart of this is data products, because realistically we need something that is tied to a purpose. We need something that this is the true source of data for this purpose. Okay, I used to work in BI and analytics, and a couple of you might have heard this story already so far the past couple of days. Myself and a data analyst in Sheffield, we built the same report. Exactly the same report for the same purpose. Our bosses didn't communicate to us at the time that the other one was actually going to be doing it. It was a whole mess. And we built these reports using slightly different sets of data, right? Slightly different curated sets of data from the data warehouse. His was slightly more uncurated because he wanted the raw data that hadn't been manipulated too much. I used slightly more curated data because I thought it was more reliable. And the numbers were off by a huge amount, dozens of thousands of pounds. So when we took them to the board and went, shiny report, they all went, why do these things not match? If it's the same result, if it's the same KPI, why do these numbers not tie up? And then we had to spend like a month basically figuring out exactly why we had mucked everything up. I'm saying this is quite a grand scale mess up, or certainly on my part for not communicating appropriately. But things like this happen all the time. So having something that's already there with a purpose for consumption for that kind of model, analytics, reporting, that's what makes the difference. And tying in capabilities, again, I'm talking about this more in terms of perhaps COLLIBRA capabilities in this sense, but actually having governance as part of the whole thing. Governance, right? It's all there at every wheel. And making sure we're measuring quality, making sure we're building a reliable, well-curated data catalog, because nobody wants a catalog that's just metadata. You may as well be using Excel. Again, go and watch the talk from last year, and I talk all about that. And in fact, in that talk, I used this image. checking my time. I've still got 10 minutes, thank you. In that talk, I talked about data as a product, thinking about data as a product and not just consuming different columns. Now, you may be thinking, Chris, why am I sat here looking at different data sets and an aubergine? Now, in this instance, the aubergine represents the product. If you want to make a beautiful vegan moussaka, right, you're going to need some aubergines. And when you go to the website, other retailers are available. When you go to the website, you type in aubergine, you get aubergine, but you also get roasted aubergine meze, which sounds delicious, but also aubergine pickle. You don't want to be building a moussaka with aubergine pickle. Okay, still technically type of aubergine. In the same way that if you're building a model based on employee data or customer data, there are going to be lots of different subsets, lots of different types of customer data, and having a decent data product that represents that purpose for data, that is what's going to tie it all back to the same number and actually building good predictive analytics. What you need is a marketplace for data, somewhere where someone can come and instead of knowing that they're looking for cust_act_num_c, they go, customer data, please just give me customer data. And bang, that's where it is. It surfaces that insight. It's trusted, it's well governed, it's high quality, highly curated data that they can consume, and not simply one data scientist going off on their own and building a model without you knowing, that introduces a whole heaping heck of risk to the organization. Complete the picture. So the framework in practice, what does it actually look like? Well, define the use case, have a name, have a description. What is the business value? As with all things, tie it back to the business value and actually work your way through. What I'm showing you now is how COLLIBRA do this. We build AI products internally and we document them and we plan them and we build out use cases with COLLIBRA to do this. And again, you can do it any way you like, but this is how we do it at COLLIBRA. So we give the business value, and does it require AI? If it does, what is that going to look like? And actually defining the use case also defines how we're going to get to the end stage to catalog, certify, and monitor that model in an ongoing basis. Okay? You'll notice that we've got the AI assessment just down here as well, the extra steps that are involved to sign it off. And that's where it is, right? Is identify and understanding the data, find the data product that we have available, and then is it high quality? Because if my data is at a top level, right, we give it a rating of 78.97% of data quality, why am I consuming that for the model? Why am I putting that in the model when I should, in fact, be getting my house in order first, doing a Rabobank and going up and going, do you know what, actually, let's tackle the quality first, because once we've got good quality data, what we do with it is then up to us, within legal reason. And then what does it look like? Well, here we go. If someone comes to us and says, I need a customer churn model, right? I need you to build an AI model for customer churn. Does it involve new data acquisition? Is it external data? Is it internal data? Is it data we already have? And does it involve changes to existing data feeds? Does InfoSec have any concerns? Has it been approved by legal? Please involve legal in your discussions. It's kind of important. And this is where we're identifying risk at all the stages, because if we get to this point and actually our models are not bronze, silver or gold certified, if when we're delivering these models and documenting them and documenting the results, if the model accuracy or the model precision are in the toilet, then there's absolutely no point continuing with them. It's about reverse engineering that and understanding why it's in the toilet and how we can improve it, how we can improve the data quality. And what does it look like? Well, in practice, it looks like tying that piece of legislation to the model. It looks highlighting the feature set that is used for that model and where it is implemented in our data, so we can understand the risk to the system, so we can understand the risk to the people. Remember, there's people behind data. And actually tie that to the governance aspects of it as well. And it all boils down to verifying it, monitoring it, letting it evolve over time. And I can stand here and look at this and say, there's my customer churn model, is implemented by my AI model, has this input, is visualized in where it's visualized, where it's being used by my company, and ultimately what I'm compliant with. It's the whole ecosystem for data. And that's where we get our go, no-go decisions, right? Check for quality, check for bias, check for accuracy and performance. What is it costing us? And ultimately, is it going to be used? Quick reminder, what goes in comes out. Yeah? And COLLIBRA, whilst we wouldn't say, we're governing all of this and you should just throw everything into COLLIBRA or any other vendor, right, who looks at this sort of technology, the idea is just to make sure you're really thinking about the data that goes into any AI models and you're governing it appropriately with the right value, the right business use case, everything. So top line, why AI governance? Quality and explainability, compliance and trust, accountability and transparency. And this is the thing. As we work towards explainable AI, and even today, right, if any of you are using Bing, if any of you are using Google Bard, I don't know if ChatGPT does this, but it might. I spend all my time in Bard. But you can actually highlight where that information is coming from. It actually highlights the sources that have been the basis for its answer. And as we move to more explainable models, the documentation and the monitoring and the use cases are going to be critical. I like this diagram. I like talking about it a lot because this blue ball is neither IT nor governance, right? It's not legal. It's not the CISO. It's not InfoSec. We want to move towards this utopian society of building incredible transformative AI capabilities across healthcare, across finance, across our personal lives, and everything from just how we interact with a company to the climate. So this thing should not be where you limit the use of AI, but should instead be guide rails. With properly governed AI data, with properly governed AI inputs, and understanding what goes in, what comes out, I like to call it the Cotton Eye Joe principle. Where did you come from? Where did you go? No? Okay. But understanding that whole journey, that life cycle for data, and governing it appropriately means that you limit risk, you build a defensible position. And I want to leave you with one quote from Douglas Adams, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. We're talking about ML, so I thought it made sense to be in there. But if somebody thinks they're a hedgehog, or an ML model thinks it's a hedgehog, presumably you just give them a mirror and a few pictures of hedgehogs and tell them to sort it out for themselves. They'll figure it out, as long as we're giving them the right pictures of hedgehogs. If you've got questions, I'll be over at the COLLIBRA booth, 620. Again, everything I've talked to you about today has been, I won't say generic, but is equally applicable across the tech stack, across personas. But if you do have questions, come and talk to us. We also have a one-pager for you if you want to take that back and have a bit wider of a think about it. I will also probably go for lunch in probably 40 minutes because I'm starving and out of voice. So yeah, I'll be there for the next 40 minutes, 10-minute gap, and then all the rest of the afternoon. But have an amazing rest of Big Data London, and hopefully I'll see you around.